So good evening, everyone, and welcome officially to tonight's session, Mastering Communication Tools for Chapter Leaders. This is the third and final session in the inaugural ASDA Chapter Leadership Academy. We're so excited to have you all here with us tonight. Many of you know, I think by now, that I'm Kylie Weller. I'm ASDA's Chapter Engagement Manager, and I'll be helping moderate tonight's session with our speaker, Dr. Tanya Sue Maestas. And this session tonight is designed to help you identify various types of communications, tools, and strategies, and when to utilize each, to explore collaborative communication with peers and administration, and to recognize how to reach a successful end to a difficult conversation. So as you are all here participating in this session, make sure to schedule a meeting with your boards to share the information that you're learning tonight. Write down those key highlights, any items that you really want to bring back to your chapter to discuss, and consider how the information that you're hearing really threads its way through the presentation and into the work that you're doing at your chapters. So of course, during the presentation, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat and we'll have time to answer questions at the end. And we'll provide contact information too if you want to get in touch with us directly. So now let me formally introduce our speaker, Dr. Tanya Sue Maestas. Dr. Maestas was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. She attended dental school at the University of Texas School of Dentistry at Houston. She graduated in 2018 and completed an AEGD residency in 2019. During dental school, she became involved in organized dentistry and served in various leadership roles, including president of ASDA. After graduating, she returned to El Paso and she practices outside the city at La Clinica de Familia, where she serves as a dental director for the site. She also serves as a part-time faculty member at the Woody L. Hunt School of Dental Medicine. Last year, she was named the Texas New Dentist of the Year. She has continued her involvement in organized dentistry by serving in numerous roles with organizations including the ADA, the Academy of General Dentistry, the Hispanic Dental Association, to name a few. She is an alumnus of the American Dental Association Institute for Diversity and Leadership and was recognized as one of the American Dental Association 10 Under 10 recipients and one of Incisal Edge 40 Under 40 dentists. She's passionate about providing care to underserved communities, and she seeks to help close the gap and barriers to care. She strives to promote diversity within dentistry and seeks to ensure inclusion at all levels of the profession. Let's give a welcome to Dr. Maestas, and I will now turn it over to her to lead us through the presentation tonight. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Kylie, and hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you all. Like Kylie mentioned, today we're going to be talking about mastering communications and different tools that hopefully you'll be able to use in your chapters and hopefully also throughout your dental career. But I'm super excited to be here. Like Kylie mentioned, a little bit about myself. I went to school, graduated from Houston in 2018, did an AGD after that. Most recently, I completed a dental public health residency program where I got my MPH and also a certificate in dental public health. So with that, I can do different programming in dental public health. For me, education is where my heart lies long term. And so hopefully I can use the knowledge that I attained from that training when I do go into education full time. I am a National Health Service Corps scholar. I received the scholarship back in dental school where I got my school paid for and returned to service in an underserved area for 4 years. I finished my commitment last year. I've been at the clinic for 5 years. For me, I really enjoy public health dentistry. I really encourage you all to consider a career in public health. I think it's very rewarding and you definitely get your reps in and you learn quite a bit. And if you have any interests or questions about this scholarship, I'd be glad to share my knowledge with you at a later time. And also there is a loan repayment program that is available as well. So if the scholarship isn't really something that you're able to do, or maybe you want to weigh your decisions as to whether or not you want to do a residency and maybe later do the loan repayment program, that's definitely an option. I was the ASDA president in 2017, 2018, which seems so long ago, but really wasn't, I guess, or doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And it truly was just year-wise. And I did the leadership kind of rank and portal through my local component at Houston, and that was a lot of fun. And I do believe that a lot of the leadership that I have now, a lot of that leadership training that I attained was during that time. I am currently the dental director at La Clínica de Familia in Chaparral, New Mexico. That's about 45 minutes outside of El Paso, Texas. But I am moving on Tuesday to be the dental director at Isla del Sur Pueblo, which is Indian Health Service. And so I will be working with a Native American reservation here in El Paso. And I'm really excited. It is closer to home, but I'm also excited for the different opportunities that will present itself in doing so. So I think that that'll be a lot of fun for me, and I'll be able to continue to learn and build my skill in the profession. I'm also a part-time faculty member at the Woody L. Hunt School of Dental Medicine. That is one of the newer schools it's been around for the last 4 years. And this year will be the first year that we have a graduating class. So we're really excited to see them graduate and to see what they'll do with their career. So a little bit about what we're going to be talking today. I'll be covering why communication matters, different communication styles, the importance of nonverbal communication skills, the importance of active listening, feedback in communication, conflict resolution, communication in practice, and how to run a meeting. So as we start our presentation here, I'd like you all to think about some of the challenges that your chapter is currently facing. If you feel comfortable in sharing those challenges, please share them in the chat. If I'm able to, I will try to help you face those challenges and maybe different strategies on what you can do to mitigate those challenges in your chapter. And hopefully what I share will also help you tackle those challenges head on. So why communication matters? Well, communication is truly the cornerstone to success. It is really the foundation of everything that we do. Without good communication in our profession, nothing can get done. And I would say the same can be said for our individual chapters in ASDA. It's the foundation for effective leadership. If you can communicate clearly and effectively, I truly believe that you can complete anything that you and your chapter set your minds to. When you have good communication with you and your peers, it facilitates trust, which leads to the chapter knowing what direction they're heading, and overall boosts the morale of the entire chapter and other leaders that you are leading. Good communication also helps prevent misunderstandings. So when everyone is on the same page and you're able to communicate what the goals are, you are able to make sure that people are understanding, there are no misunderstandings, and everyone is headed in the same direction. It helps with team alignment. And of course, when everyone is happy and doing the things that they love and going in a positive direction, it leads to a successful chapter. One thing I failed to mention is during my time at Houston, we did win the Gold Crown Award. And I don't think that that all came down to my leadership. I think that it was a succession of different leaders that came before me. But I think it's because of the different leaders that we had at the time of the year that we won and the way that we were able to clearly communicate with each other, that we were able to accomplish quite a bit of tasks and events that allowed us to submit a successful application and win that award. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to celebrate with our peers and just see, the culminating efforts come together to win that award. One of the benefits of learning communication early on is that if you're able to master it early on, it leads to future success. I can tell you right now that if you can master communication with your peers, with your team, it'll be a whole lot easier to implement different communication skills when it comes to running a team. Now, even if you go into a practice where you're not the lead dentist, even if you're just an associate, you still need good communication skills in order to communicate. So it's really important to try and test out different ways of communicating and leading in dental school, because it'll help you in the future as you practice dentistry. So there are a few different communication styles. This is something that maybe you've seen before, but I'd like to review them a little bit, and I'd like all of us to kind of reflect to see where we fall in and if there are any areas that we can improve on. So passive communication styles are when a person often avoids expressing thoughts or needs. They tend to suppress different issues. Aggressive, these people are a little bit more forceful or dominant. They can create a lot of tension or conflict in different groups. Passive aggressive, we all know that person. It's the indirect expression of negative feelings. It can lead to confusion. And assertive, it's clear, respectful, and direct. And this is kind of the ideal style for different leaders to implement in their leadership styles. And it can be hard to implement. I think that oftentimes it can be difficult to be assertive. And oftentimes it can be difficult. There's a fine line, I feel, sometimes between assertive and aggressive. And I think that it's important to remember that, we're not being forceful on something. We're just being clear and respectful with our ideas and ideals that we would like to convey with our team. So some benefits of each communication style. Passive we've all been in a situation where we'd rather remain quiet, but usually passive people are people who avoid conflicts, and that can lead to issues later on. A lot of times I have seen passive leaders kind of stay back in the background and not say a whole lot. They kind of go with the flow, but oftentimes you come to find out that they're not really happy in the situation that they're in. Now, if they would have spoken up and would have shared their ideas or their thoughts or reasons why they didn't feel XYZ was the best way to do things, perhaps their ideas could have been implemented. But that can be really challenging to work with somebody who is passive. Somebody who's passive sometimes also may not want to do a whole lot of work. They sign up for something and they'll do a few things here and there. But sometimes some passive people can be challenging to work with. Aggressive, oftentimes we find that aggressive leaders, they definitely get their results, but it can be dangerous. It can be very forceful, and it can feel like they're putting down other members in the team. And we definitely don't want to do that. Whenever we are leading a team and communicating with a team, we definitely want to make sure that we are doing what we can to make everyone feel as included as possible and not really forcing one certain idea for everyone to kind of agree upon. The way that I like to lead is kind of getting a consensus from the entire team, hearing everyone out, hearing different ideas, and then moving forward with those ideas. Passive aggressive, there really is no real benefit to that communication style. And assertive, this is respectful, it's open to collaboration. It is what leads to a healthy atmosphere. And of course, leaders must adapt. I wish we could all come to different leadership situations and have a group of people that are all assertive, that are all able to clearly communicate how they feel, their ideas. But the reality is that's not what life is. And so as a leader, we must learn to adapt to work with different people with their different communication styles and with their different personality styles as well. So I found this really great little infographic online, and there's a website that you can follow up to find more information. I really thought that this article that they had some really great information about communication styles. But I think that this is really telling on, the different styles and where they fall in this cross section. So for me, I personally feel like I often am in the assertive side, but often in the passive side. And I say that because I tend to talk a lot. I tend to oftentimes dominate conversations, but I have learned to take a step back and make sure that I listen to others. So like I shared, I really like to make sure that I include others in the conversation, listen to their ideas, and find ways that I can implement them. So we can see that those who are assertive and aggressive, they have high openness of communication. It is likely that those who are aggressive are leading those conversations and maybe forcefully leading with different ideas. Aggressive and passive aggressive, they have low consideration for others. Passive aggressive and passive, low openness to communication. And like I said, they kind of sit on the back burner and maybe don't share a whole lot when it comes to those who are passive. And passive and assertive, we have a high consideration for others, which I think is really important when it comes to leading different groups. So there are different tools that you can use to discover your own leadership and communication styles, but also discover your team's communication and leadership styles. So there are two tools that I'd like to discuss, and it's something that I'd like you all to consider using. There are free assessments that are available for both of these tools. Of course, it is really nice if you could get somebody who is trained for these tools to administer them to your team, but oftentimes because of cost, that's not possible. So I had the opportunity to take the DISC tool to participate in DISC training when I was part of the ADA IDL group. And we took this, it's kind of like quizzes. They're very similar to Myers-Briggs. And you take this quiz or, it's a series of questions that you answer, and it is very telling to how you are as a leader and how you communicate with others. So the DISC is an assessment and a behavioral tool that helps people understand their own and others' personalities by measuring how they respond to routine questions. So DISC stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and consciousness. And so, and for D, for dominance, people who are in the dominance areas, they are very results oriented. They are a driver, they are competitive. Moving over to I, those are people who are influencing. They are persuasive, inspiring, and enthusiastic. Moving to S, those are people who are more stabilizing, amicable, democratic, and patient. And then moving over to C, those are people who are more cautious, analytical, detail-oriented, and systematic. So where can DISC help you? Well, DISC can help you really understand who you are and who the peers you're working with are as well too. It can help improve job performance for both yourself and your peers, improve communication, teamwork, and productivity. It helps you increase self-knowledge. It identifies limiting beliefs that may be holding you back, and you can help develop strategies to achieve your goals. So I think it's really important to really understand who you are as a leader, but also understand who your peers are. And I think that in dental school, it's a really pivotal moment to find out who you are as a person. I feel like we all have a concept and an idea of who we are and how we lead, but I think it's really cool to see it on paper. I think it's really cool to see it on paper and to see different strategies on how to manage yourself, your leadership style, and how to work with others. And that's where this tool is really, really neat. So this is my DISC assessment. This is when I took this a few years ago, and ever so often, like once a year, I review the DISC assessment and the other tool that I took as well. And so I fell under the I. So if we go back, I is influence. And this is what my dot on this pie shows. Because you have an I style, you probably enjoy relating to other people. You tend to have a fairly extensive network of friends and colleagues, and you may view a room full of strangers as a fun opportunity to connect. Similarly, you're likely to get personal satisfaction out of introducing people who would have not otherwise meet, which is very true. I love meeting people from different aspects of life and introducing them. And if we can have two people from different walks of life, especially for collaborating on something, and I know that they have individual strengths, if I'm able to introduce them to each other, I love to see what we can do and collaborate to bring to fruition, a certain idea. In a similar way, if you relate to potentially being an I as well too, this is a good time for you to potentially identify those in your chapter who aren't leaders. Those who have really good skills and ideas and can bring a lot to your chapter, but aren't already involved. I think that for us at Houston, when I was there, we were able to identify quite a few people who weren't involved, but had amazing skills. And we really honed in and asked them what we could do to get them involved. And it's hard. There are a lot of people who go to dental school and they want to get in, they want to get out. I understand that. But it is fun to get involved and kind of include them. They're your friends. Those are people that you spend time with. And so we found different ways to include people that we knew were rock stars and found different smaller jobs that they could participate in. I had a friend who helped us revamp our website. She was very, very smart, didn't really want to spend any time in ASDA, but we encouraged her and really found a way for her to help us out with our website. And it was fun. It was fun to collaborate with her. And it was so cool to see the product at the end and see her skills put into use. So a little bit more on the DISC assessment. There's a section that talks about your communication style. So for me, when communicating, you tend to be expressive. As y'all can probably tell, I talk a lot with my hands. I make a lot of facial expressions. You may dial up your volume and gestures to get people's attention. Compared to most people, you have a stronger urge to process your feelings by verbalizing them. At times, your somewhat talkative nature may cause you to monopolize conversations, particularly with those who are most soft-spoken. So for me, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I try to be a little bit more passive for that same reason. I'm very cognizant that I can oftentimes be dominant in a conversation. And I really like to include those who are a little bit more soft-spoken and who don't typically share their ideas. For me, I really want to hear from them. I want to hear from everyone in the group to make sure that they feel included, to make sure that, the ideas that we're setting forth is something that everyone is comfortable with. And so ways that I like to do that in conversations, aside from kind of taking a step back and remaining quiet, is if somebody's being very quiet during a meeting, I like to pass a question over to them. I'll say, Bobby Joe, how do you feel about this situation? Or what are your thoughts on this conversation that's going on? And sometimes it takes them by surprise. And if they don't feel comfortable answering, that's okay. But they do feel comfortable sharing. That's a great opportunity for you to include them in the conversation. This is really cool, and it's something that's also included in DISC, but these are different strategies that I can use when working with others in the workplace. So it says, give others time to process your message. So, delivering a thought or an idea and maybe taking time just for them to process it and not speaking right away. Acknowledge problems rather than glossing them over. I don't do great with conflict. I think that it really makes me uncomfortable. And there are often times that I can just be very, very passive and just put it off to the side. But that can lead to issues. And so it's really important to have those conversations early on. If you're having any trouble in your chapter currently, or maybe there is a chapter leader that you're having troubles with, It's really important to tackle those issues head on. The sooner that you tackle them, the sooner that you have that conversation, that tough conversation, the sooner it's going to be in the past, and you'll be able to find a way to mitigate that situation and avoid monopolizing conversations. Got it. I've learned from that, and I'm really trying, and I'm really cognizant when I'm in a group situation to not monopolize the conversation and to make sure that I'm doing my part to listen. Predictive index. This is another tool that you can also take a look at. It measures behavioral drives and cognitive abilities. It helps evaluate candidates. This is usually done for people in the workforce whenever somebody is applying for a job. Evaluates candidates' needs, motivation, and ability to pick up new concepts. So the PI is really cool. It gives you your strongest behaviors. So these are some of my strongest behaviors. It says here, I am comfortable, fluent, and fast talking. As you all can probably tell, I talk very fast. I try to be enthusiastic. And so this is very telling for me as to who I am as a person. And, sometimes it feels silly to do these quizzes to learn more about yourself, but I think it is really telling. I think it is really eye-opening, and it helps confirm a lot of things that you may feel about yourself and helps you build on that. So this is something that you can share when you're in a new workplace or maybe when you're starting to lead a new team. My management style. I think that this was very helpful to me to see in dental school. I did the PI during my time in ASDA. We all did it as a group, as a executive board, and then with our district trustees as well too. And so it was really cool to see how we compared to others. And it also helped us to view how we could work best with each other and how we had to adapt our leadership style based on how different people work. And so this was really great to see management style and how I manage and different ways that I maybe needed to change my management style to work with others. So those are two really good tools that I encourage you all to take a look at. Like I mentioned, there are some free assessments that are available. Of course, there are some paid assessments as well too. It just depends, the extent that you'd like to see those results for yourself or your team. If that's not something you can do now in dental school, totally understand it. I definitely would encourage you as a young professional, young dentist, to take a look at that or look for a practice who potentially incorporates that into their hiring and their managing of their team members. So what communication styles do you all most relate to? If you all can, I'd love for you all to share that in the chat. All right, we got an I, another I. Okay. What about passive or assertive or passive aggressive or aggressive? Does anyone? Okay, assertive aggressive. All right. Thanks for sharing. Passive assertive. Very cool. All right, so identifying your own communication style is important. It is super important to be self-aware of who you are as a person and where you can grow. If you feel like you are passive aggressive, what are things that you can do to be more assertive? Tools like DISC can help. Tools like the PI can help as well too. Of course, we're constantly trying to identify areas that we can improve ourselves. In addition to trying to lead a team, to trying to lead others, you want to find ways that you can improve yourself so that way you can become a better leader. Of course, focus on your strengths and identify those weaknesses. And if you can work on those weaknesses, I think that's huge. So nonverbal communication skills. So we probably have heard about these as well too, but these are really important when it comes to having different conversations, whether it's one-on-one or in a group. So for nonverbal communication skills, you want to make sure that your body language is positive. You want to keep a good posture and be very cognizant of what your gestures are doing. If you're talking to somebody and their arms are crossed and, they're looking at you or looking around, you obviously know that they don't want to be there with you. So be very cognizant of what you are doing with your body as well too. Try to keep a neutral stance as much as possible. Try to keep a smile when you can, very neutral as well, even when you're having those tough conversations. It can be challenging, but it can go a long way as well too. Tone of voice, of course, we can inflect different words, which can lead to mean different things. I think inflection and tone can really help you convey your message in a different way. And of course, not yelling. Even when you're having those difficult conversations, just kind of keeping it cool. If you keep your cool and you keep your tone down, That's really going to set the example for the other person that you're having a conversation with, or with your team as a whole. Message reception. So if somebody is having a conversation with you, you want to nod, you want to acknowledge, you want to maybe repeat back what they're saying, just to feel like you are in the moment and very present with them. Eye contact, wandering eyes. I know it can be, we all can get in the habit of kind of just looking around when we're having a conversation with somebody, but really trying to keep that eye contact really helps feel that other person to be valued. Same thing when you're in a group. If you're able to kind of scan, if you're in a room with different leaders, scan the leaders and try to make eye contact with the different leaders in the room. It'll really help them make them feel included. We used to do this activity, I guess you could call it, where it would help us with public speaking, where we would have everyone stand up and we would start speaking, and we would start maybe reading something, or just having a conversation with a message that we would want to relay to the audience. And we would have to look at everyone in the audience, and every time somebody was looked at, or once the speaker's gaze reached the person, they got to sit down. So it allowed you to see how your eye contact worked with the entire room. And it was really, really helpful, because you want to make sure, especially if you're ever public speaking, that you're engaging with your crowd, with your audience. And so doing that was a great exercise for you to visually see those individuals sitting down. And it helps you really kind of tell whether or not you're making a connection with the entire room. So that may be something that you would want to try with your leadership board. It's something, have them stand up, especially if it's a larger group, and have them sit down one by one. It's a really fun exercise, and it's simple. It's not something too complicated. Active listening. So you definitely want to listen to the conveyor's message. You don't want to interrupt. Like I mentioned, if you want to try to reinstate the speaker's point, that really helps to ensure that you are listening, but also ensures that you are understanding the speaker's message. Ask questions. The best way to have a full understanding of whoever is speaking to you is asking them follow-up questions. That also helps you ensure that there is clarity and no misunderstanding. Show empathy. If it's a tough conversation, you want to make sure that you are empathetic to whoever's talking to you, especially when it comes to practicing as a dentist. That is something that you will continue to learn, but being empathetic for different patients from their walk of life is really important. And you can learn that by showing empathy to your peers and to those that you lead. And active listening makes team members feel valued and heard. So definitely something that you would want to put into practice early on, so that way you can master it once you do graduate and potentially, lead larger groups. But of course, when you become a practicing dentist and when you listen to your patients. Conflict resolution in difficult conversations. This is very challenging. This is definitely an area that can be very uncomfortable. It can be very uncomfortable to do at all walks of life. It was hard for me to do in dental school. It's hard for me to do that now as a dentist, leading a team, having tough conversations, sitting an assistant or a hygienist or a front desk down, having a conversation saying like, hey, like this isn't working. I definitely am still guilty of trying to gloss it or push it under the table, and hopefully it'll, resolve itself on its own. Typically, it doesn't. You need to have these conversations with your team, and you need to learn to have these conversations. And as I say this, I am also telling that to myself, because it can be really hard. But like I mentioned, you want to remain calm. You have control of the situation. Once you start yelling, losing your cool, things are going to start going south. So you want to make sure that you are remaining calm. You are delivering your message assertively, potentially not aggressively, but that it's clear, and so that way we can acknowledge the issue at hand. Like I mentioned, don't avoid the conflict. It is easier said than done, but the sooner that you get to it, like I mentioned, the sooner it's going to be in the past. This is a great time to implement active listening. This is a great time to say, hey, like this isn't working, X, Y, Z. And if they're telling you why it's not working, listen to them. Maybe there is a reason that it's not. Taking a step back and seeing their point of view can be very valuable from the other perspective. So even if you know that they're in the wrong, take a step back, listen to them, try to see where they're coming from, and see if you can mitigate the situation from their point of view. Focus on solutions that work. try to find a common ground. Maybe you can meet halfway with that other person. And of course, use the difficult conversations as an opportunity to grow. After having that conversation, try to find out what went well, what didn't go well. Think back about the situation, think back on the conversation, and what are ways, if you could go through that conversation again, through that situation, what would you have done differently? Maybe you got upset. Maybe you raised your voice. How could you change that for the next time? I would make a mental note of that, so that way you're prepared for the future difficult conversation that you might have. And you can implement some of those strategies and do differently in the future than maybe something that you did in the past. Communicating in a team environment. So you want to make sure that we're fostering a culture of comfort. Be clear with your roles and responsibilities. One of the things that we would do at Houston that was really helpful was at the beginning of the year, every year, we would have everyone sign a roles and responsibilities list. It was an outline of what they were in charge of for each year, and it was almost like a contract that they would sign. So no one could come back and say, hey, I didn't know what my role was. And this was something that we would put together and we would evaluate every year to make sure that it was still appropriate for us to be signing. And we would have everyone sign it, and everyone kept a copy, and we would keep a copy with our bylaws. So if anyone came, or if, throughout the year, if somebody said, well, I didn't know I had to do that, we can say, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's pull out the contract that you signed, and let's see if that's in your roles and responsibilities. And typically, usually it was. And so we would find ways for them to correct it. And if that's something that wasn't working for them, we would either find another team member that could help them out with that, or potentially transition another leader into that role. That kind of contract can help with confusion and accountability. Lead the discussions. If you are a leader, if you are a president, and somebody in the room is being louder than you are, if they are the ones that is leading the conversation, is leading the meeting, that's a problem. Take a rein in the situation. Now, I'm not saying, earlier I said, I like to sit back and I like to listen to other people's ideas. Yes, continue to do that. But if you're leading a meeting and somebody else is trying to take the reins over, that's an issue. So you need to have either a conversation with that person or find a way to get a rein on the situation, on the meeting, so that way you are still leading that meeting. Ensure everyone participates. Remember the communication styles. You may have to tailor the way that people are communicating and participating to the way that they are more comfortable in doing so. Provide encouragement. Maybe there is an event that didn't go really well. That's okay. We can encourage our leaders who led that event to look at what didn't go well and to do better for the next event. And like I mentioned, if there's a leader who's not participating or in a leadership role currently, you can encourage them to become a leader so that way they can also be involved and share their skills and unique abilities with your chapter. Okay, I'd like to get into digital tools, but I'm always curious if anyone here is using a digital tool to communicate with their chapter or with their leaders, their EC. If you do have a digital tool that you really enjoy using, if you wouldn't mind leaving it in the chat. Oh, I hope somebody drops a tool. I'm a big fan of learning about new tools, so hopefully if maybe I will trigger some ideas here in a second. But I love to learn about different tools that people can use when leading their teams. All right, so some different communication tools digital tools that you can consider using. Emails are great. GroupMe is great as well too. Emails are great. It helps keep everyone on the same page. You can send them out. Sometimes you don't need a meeting. An email can suffice. And sometimes, everyone goes to these meetings where an email would have been better. So if you can save some people time, send an email out. Group messaging is quick and helpful. It can be challenging because sometimes it can become unprofessional. But try to keep the tone of professionalism at the forefront when you can, especially when you're talking about business. If you're talking about fun, of course, have a little bit of fun. These are your peers. These are people who you're going to enjoy 4 years of dental school with. Be mindful of the tone of your message. Don't forget, everything lives on our devices, so we want to be sure that whatever we're sending is positive and not something that can get us in trouble. Set boundaries. We want to be professional. We want to have boundaries. We want to let people know if they're going too far. GroupMe is great. We had a GroupMe chat as well too. You can do a WhatsApp. Discord, that's definitely an idea. Slack is something that we can consider using as well, or even Google Docs. If you use an Excel sheet, you can assign different tasks to team members. And there are drop-down menus where you can put, like due date is on this date. And if the person is done with it, they can put, done. They can use a drop-down to put done. It's basically an Excel file, you can customize it the way that you'd like. But there are a lot of cool features of Google Drive that you can use to help lead your team. Excel is one of them, but a Google document, a Word document is helpful as well too. A PowerPoint is also very useful as well. Communicating with faculty and administrators. I am curious to hear if any of you all have any challenges communicating with your faculty and administrators. I can remember when I was in dental school and had conversations with different leaders from different schools, this was something that always came up. At Houston, thankfully, I had a lot of support from our faculty and administrators. They were very supportive of people attending different national conferences, being involved. But I know that that wasn't the case for all the schools across the board. I definitely got my occasional no's, but for the most part, it was pretty clear for the most part that when I had to travel, and they knew what I was leading for. Of course, when you're having a conversation with faculty, with your dean, with the assistant deans, be respectful. Remain confident. You're knowledgeable of what your chapter is doing. You are a confident leader. You are leading your peers. So keep that confidence when you're having those conversations. Advocate for yourself, advocate for your students, and for your chapter. If you don't advocate for them, nothing's going to get done. So you definitely want to make sure that you are showing what your chapter is doing and the direction that they're going and the positives that come with that. Get a faculty mentor on your side, whether it's just a member or a mentor. If somebody is totally all in with ASDA, with organized dentistry, you want them on your side. If you have to sit down with your dean tomorrow, I would want that mentor, that faculty member, to be in there with me. Why? Not to lead the conversation. I don't want them to have the majority of the conversation with the dean. I would want to have that conversation as the student, but I would want them to be there to back me up. I would want them to be the expert witness, per se, to say, hey, yeah, I have seen these students working hard. They have been doing XYZ events and have accomplished XYZ as well. We should continue to support them. We should continue to allow them to attend the national conferences so they can bring back that knowledge to our other students. Provide results and follow-up. One of the things that we used to do at Houston after NLC and after annual session is we would come back and kind of do a recap with the general body. This was an opportunity for members who attended these conferences to share what they learned. This would be a great opportunity to invite faculty members and administrators so that way they can share your experience, the members' experiences that attended the conference with them. So I would encourage you all to do that. I think that this is a great way to also show accountability on behalf of those students who are participating in events, because I know that there are many students in chapters that get upset seeing other members who get to attend these meetings and they don't. And they say, I've heard the comments before, they're just going to have fun. And yes, of course, these meetings are a lot of fun. You're seeing friends from across the nation and you're having a good time, but you're also learning a ton. So I think bringing that value back to your chapter is very, very important. And we made it a priority to do so we could help keep those conversations to a minimum. Because at the end of the day, our representatives were going to these meetings to learn, to grow, and bring back that knowledge to grow our chapters. Yeah, so I would love to hear any challenges that you're having with faculty and administration. Caleb, you shared that you occasionally do. I would love to learn more about that if you are comfortable sharing that. But anyone else, if you have a current challenge, please let us know. So developing your leadership style. I want you all to make sure that you are leading in a way that feels true to yourself. Make sure that you are leading, feeling comfortable in your skin and maybe not pretending to be somebody else. If you're authentic, you will build credibility with those who you are leading. Identify your values. What's important to you as a leader? What's important for you to impart to your fellow leaders in your chapter? do the prep work. If you're going to be giving a presentation, if you're going to have a meeting, review the agenda ahead of time, put an agenda together, and make sure you're confident going into that meeting. Practice speaking. It's important to practice speaking to feel comfortable with what you're going to deliver, and be welcome to feedback. It's important for us to have feedback in our leadership journey in order for us to grow. Without that feedback, we won't grow. And so whenever I would host, even now, you know, after our conversation tonight, I'm going to welcome feedback on ways on how I can improve. Same things whenever I lead a meeting and whenever I have led a meeting. I ask people who I'm comfortable with, and you can ask people you're not comfortable with as well too, to give you feedback. Ask them, how did you think that meeting went? Where are areas that I can improve? And if you felt like maybe a certain area didn't go so well, what did you think about this? I wasn't really comfortable when I delivered this idea. Did you think that it came off weird? Was it clear? How could I have corrected that? And it's really nice to receive the feedback from your peers, from your mentors, to help you grow as a leader. I do have 2 book recommendations that I'd like to recommend to you all. The first one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is the original, but I think that there is one in the digital age, it's very powerful. This book and the other book are going to become a yearly read for me, or yearly listen. I am an audiobook person because I commute really long commutes. And so this book really hones in on the power of listening, building genuine relationships, engaging positively with people, building influence through empathy and understanding, and managing conflicts. It's a really, really great book. There is a Carnegie Center. There are trainings that you can take to become just kind of a better leader, a better listener. I think that there's a lot of value with this book. The other book is Start With Why. This is a great book that I think everyone should read. I think that everyone going into the profession should read. I think that it really helps us to acknowledge and recognize what our why is, our individual why in life, why we do what we do, why we're leaders, why we're dentists. It talks about the power of authentic leadership, inspiration versus manipulation, clarity in messaging, engaging and mobilizing others, and finding out your own why. So 2 great books that I encourage you guys to read. So before I get into how to run a meeting, I'd like to just read Caleb's message. Getting events fundraisers approved has been a struggle recently. We're still able to get done, just more hurdles than we would like. Totally understand that that can be challenging. I think I've seen that a lot with our students here. And, you know, we advocate where we can to get as much done as we can. Sometimes I remember I would like to barter a little bit with faculty and say, hey, like if we can't do that this year, what can we do to make this this event, this idea come to fruition next year? What can we do to make it better for you to allow us to do this? And so while you're accepting their no, in the meantime, you're finding ways to implement it for the future. And there's value in that because the administrator is putting in their feedback. And I feel like sometimes they're a little bit more willing to allow that event or fundraiser to happen because they had a little bit of say into that event or fundraiser. So running a meeting, I know that running a meeting can be challenging, but I want you to make sure that every meeting that you go to, there is an agenda. Make sure you put an agenda together, whether you're just meeting with your EC or meeting with your entire chapter as a whole. Have a guideline so that way people stay on track. You can pass that agenda out. You can send it via email. People can take notes along the way. Determine the meeting frequency. You don't have to meet with people every day. You don't have to meet with people every month. I would like to encourage you all to consider having different meetings for your EC, for your committees, and then for all of your members. I was trying to think back in Houston how we would meet. For our EC, I think we would meet every month. For our committees, we would also meet every month. And the way that we would have our committee meetings is we would have a Google PowerPoint and everyone would provide their update on there. Then we would have lunch. We would provide lunch for everyone, and every chair would stand up, provide their update, allow for questions, and we would continue moving on. This allowed for everyone to be on the same page. For all members, we had those meetings less frequently. I believe that we would for sure make sure that we would have a meeting twice a year, again, to provide the experience from those who attended NLC and annual session, but also to provide updates. And for these meetings, we would provide lunch to all members. Excuse me. And that would come from our ASDA fund. That would come from the membership dues. One of the things at Houston that we tried not to do is whenever people paid their membership, we tried to just do events or use that money for events that would impact all members, everyone who paid for their membership. We tried not to touch that. Well, actually, we didn't touch that money when we would send people out to NLC or annual session. All the people that we sent out to NLC and annual session came from fundraising money that are social chairs or events chairs put together and the team as a whole. But we would try to be very, very clear that we were not touching the money that the members were paying to send people to go to conferences. This was important so that way people could say like, hey, you know, my money that I'm paying for my membership is coming back to me. I am getting a return in the money that I'm paying for my membership. Even if you're auto enroll, at the end of the day, that money is coming out of those loans. So we would really try to provide value for members, knowing that they were paying membership. Provide updates, like I mentioned. If you can't have that meeting, another way to provide those that feedback, that experience that those who went to those meetings is putting it in a newsletter. In addition to those meetings, we would include a newsletter with a little debrief, a little section, a page where the members who attended NLC annual session, other conferences, could talk about their experiences and pearls that they learned that they wanted to share with their peers. Welcome different ideas. Before you put your agenda, if anybody from your EC or your committee wants to have something to say in the agenda, you can include it on their behalf. Invite administration. This is a great time to inform your administration what you and your chapter are doing. And if you have them involved and they're in the know, potentially they may be more keen to helping you out with future events. Resources, lots of great resources available. There are a ton of as a how-to guides for you all to check out. There are great topics that you can look at. They're free for you to use. They're on the ASDA website. Go check them out. I would highly encourage you all to do that. Kylie put a link in the chat. Local and state dental associations. I would encourage you to reach out to your local dental association and ask them if you can sit in a meeting. Watch to see how they run the meeting. And you can use some of that style, some of those influences in your own meeting. Use AI. If you need help with making an agenda, AI could help you to do that. ChatGPT, put in a well-evaluated prompt. It can help guide you on what an appropriate agenda should look like. Of course, be careful, right? AI is a tool that can help us. It isn't replacing us, but it's there to help us. But it's definitely a resource that you can use, and it's free. So I would encourage you all to take a look at that. And I think we made it. I rushed through the end a little bit, but we've made it to question and answers, and I would be glad to answer any questions that anyone has here. And I'm going to prompt Kylie to help us out with that.
Yeah, thank you. You guys can put your questions in the chat, or you're also welcome to unmute and come on camera if you'd like, or just unmute and ask a question. We still have Dr. Maestas here for a few more minutes, so.
I did get one. I have a direct message, Kylie, that I'll read out. Justin, I hope that's okay. We're having trouble getting approved absences from admin for dental related events, such as NLC, SmileCon, being hosted in our city. That's frustrating. Advocacy days on the stage, on the state and national level, and even Mission of Mercy events. I feel these are important experiences for dental students and equally important to have dental student representation. Do you have any recommendations on how to navigate this and communicate the importance of this to admin? Yes, great question. So I would encourage you to do, to potentially consider the first recommendation that I recommended. You know, ask them, hey, like if you're not going to allow us to go to this event this year, the next event that's coming up is this one. What can we do to get students to this event? For bigger events like SmileCon and advocacy days, if there is somebody in the community, a prevalent dentist who maybe went to your school, maybe didn't even go to the school, but has a good relationship, I would bring them in and have the conversation with administration with them. If you can bring, say, the State Dental Association president to have a conversation with your dean about the importance of attending an advocacy day, it is going to potentially go in your favor. I know that that's an extreme, but there is so much value. Deans value their community members. Deans value people who have political say, per se. And so if you could have a president, even if it's your local society, come in and have a conversation with them, you may get a little bit of sway there. I know that that can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it could be something that is favorable.
I'm also going to put in the chat a link to a leadership toolbox page. In the first section you'll see on there is best practices working with school administration. So that will kind of piggyback on everything that we've talked about tonight as far as communication, coming prepared, being respectful, all those things that you're hearing. So check that out too.
Yes,
Alexa,
and
I see. Oh, sorry.
what I've shared
Oh,
is likely not in the how-to guide. I'm just trying to be a little bit more innovative and unique in providing different ideas for you all.
Absolutely. Alexa, go ahead.
hi. First, thank you for coming and speaking with us.
No problem.
Yeah, so my question is, so I'm at KCU Joplin and we are a completely new chapter. So I'm currently working with our administration right now on policy like development, because our administration is over both our medical and dental school. And so a lot of the policies that were for like medical school related clubs didn't just necessarily fit what like we had vision for with our like dental school related clubs. Um, my question is, are there like any like really good like resources or advice into what this policy development can like get to? Because again, like I have a vision and me and my e-board have a vision of like what we would like to do with ASDA, but again, we don't want to be like overstepping bounds or like leading our policies astray that might not work out in like 5-10 years, if that makes sense. Does that make
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you talking about bylaws or are you just kind of talking about policy and
no?
procedure in general?
Yeah. So our bylaws and everything are already like finished
Okay,
and
those are
everything,
set.
but it's just more of like what I guess we've had trouble getting a lot of events and stuff approved in the past because it didn't necessarily fit like the scope of like what their policies were written for, like I don't know,
Yeah.
10 years ago or whatever. But I guess like right now, I just don't want to like redevelop these policies and like have it blow up 5 years from now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I do think that there is value whenever there are policies and procedures in reviewing them every few years. I think that, times change, right? Like COVID's a really good example. Lunch and learns change for that generation of students. So they had to reevaluate their policy and procedures. Excuse me. But I think that if you have a mentor or if this is an institution problem, I would sit with somebody who helps set forth a lot of these policy and procedures in the institution and work those out with them. Because the worst thing is to put something together, send it to somebody who has to approve it or review it, and then them shoot it down. And you just doing that for months on end. And so just having that direct conversation at the forefront, I think is really helpful. Is that helpful to what you're thinking?
Yeah, so I guess we're already working with I guess the higher ups within our university,
Sure.
our vice provost and like everybody underneath. And I guess more so my worry is there like a not saying like guide, but good resources essentially to make these policies kind of happen because they're willing to work with us. I mean, we've had a lot of meetings in the past and then like they're more than willing to work with us in terms of redeveloping like our like approvals and like
Yeah.
policies and whatnot. I guess
Sure.
and so my word, maybe it's just me overthinking like what we can or can't do. But like
Yeah.
yeah.
Kelly, I don't know if there's anything in the how-to guides that would help with that, but I think maybe reaching out to another school if they have policy and procedures that are already in place that maybe you could mimic, emulate, incorporate. I think that could be valuable. You can use ChatGPT as well too to help you out. Just say, hey, like this is my situation. These are the troubles that I'm having. This is my goal. Help provide a guide on how we should set our policy and procedures. Look at that, edit it, change things up. And I think that might be a good foundation for you to start and then use the feedback that you have from the higher ups to make changes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That helps.
No problem.
Any other final thoughts or questions? We're kind of coming up on our time.
Yeah. This is me. If anyone has any follow-up questions or you're not comfortable asking, that's okay. It's okay to be passive. I totally respect it. And also, I know it's a long day for you all after school. Thank you all for your time and sharing your time with me. But feel free to email me. You can find me on the gram. I try to make some funny content, so hopefully I can bring some joy into your life as well too. But please, at any point in your journey, in your dental journey, if I can be of help, if I can be a resource to you, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maestas. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in tonight's session. We really love seeing the answers that you provided to the questions that Dr. Maestas was asking. We can see communication is so important, right? And we want to have open communication with you all too. So as I think you may know, I'm going to go ahead and pop that Calendly link here in the chat. So please take that down. We would love to connect with you all on any of the successes or challenges that you are having in your chapters. We're just here to really support you all, and you all are vital to ASDA's success. So your roles are really essential. I know I'm always saying that, but I'm saying it again tonight. We couldn't do what we do without you. So again, this program was recorded and we'll be emailing the link to all participants. We'll also be sending you a brief survey. So please take a few minutes to fill that out so we can be sure that we are offering the resources that you need. Again, we really value your input. Thank you again, everyone, for your time. Thanks for participating in the ASDA Leadership Academy. We look forward to continuing our work together this year. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks again so much. Good night.
Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.